Welcome to Lesson 1 in Unit 17, Streamside Survival. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, how are animals able to survive where they live? In this lesson, students are introduced to the anchoring phenomenon. They review the concept of adaptations and apply what they learn to a wetland animal of their choice. Students figure out that animals have physical and behavioral adaptations that allow them to survive in a particular habitat. Students make connections to the storyline by identifying and modeling a wetland animal and one structure or behavior it uses to survive in this habitat. There are several opportunities for ELA cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 17 Teacher Guide. This lesson will take approximately 4 days to complete. You'll begin the unit and the Lesson 1 Engage by introducing the anchoring phenomenon. You'll show students a video about animals and habitats. You'll then ask students some questions about what they notice about the animals, their habitats, and adaptations. You'll post and discuss the wetland vocabulary card. Before showing students some video clips of a few wetland plants and animals. You'll then discuss what body parts or behaviors stand out in each video and how the animals and plants that live in a wetland might be similar or different from animals that live only on land. You'll talk about how their body parts or behaviors help them survive in a wetland. And introduce the Survive vocabulary card. You'll then allow students to turn and talk to discuss their observations. As students are sharing their observations, you'll provide them with the sentence stem, "Now I'm wondering about," to model how we can use observations to develop questions. You'll have students record their initial questions based on their observations on Post-it notes, writing one question per Post-it, and give students time to turn and talk. Once students have their questions, you'll guide them in creating categories for their questions on the driving question board using the steps provided in the teacher guide. Be sure to see the noted opportunity to attend to equity, should the provided anchoring phenomenon not be compelling for your students. Students will find the anchoring phenomenon more compelling if they can connect to it personally. If you want to change the anchoring phenomenon for your context, keep the following questions in mind. Is it going to be relevant to my students' lives and/or particularly engaging to them? By researching online, you can find specific wetland areas. And is it going to motivate students to want to explain how plants and animals use internal and external structures to survive and reproduce, how animals receive and process information, and how eyes allow us to see? Here are some examples of driving question boards from other K-5 units. They depict the students' questions in categories, some along with a drawn model from the unit. Some driving question boards are simple lists of questions or groups of sticky notes posted on chart paper. Teachers and students can manipulate and move around questions and label categories together. For the Explore portion of the lesson, you'll place students into groups and pass out the animal habitat and adaptation cards. You'll have students identify the animal and discuss the habitat in which their animal lives. Students should use the Animals, Habitats, and Adaptations student journal page to write down the animal's name, describe its habitat, and predict or describe what adaptations this animal might have that would allow it to survive in its particular habitat. For the Explain portion, you'll bring the class together and lead a discussion about students' observations from the investigation. You'll use the provided questions to guide your discussion around the question, how are animals and plants able to survive where they live? The goal of this class discussion is to analyze student observations of the different animals and their habitats to determine that organisms have structures and behaviors that help them survive and reproduce. You'll use the discussion to create the Lesson 1 summary chart. By the end of the discussion, students should understand that frogs have long tongues that help them catch food. Turtles have hard shells that help protect them from other animals, and dragonflies have wings that help them move around. During the discussion, you'll have students read, MySci Animal Adaptations. After you read, you can post and discuss the adaptation, structure, behavior, and reproduce vocabulary cards. For the elaborate portion, you'll read Near One Cattail as a class. Be sure to use the Read Aloud guide for discussion questions to complete the summary chart. For the evaluate portion, you'll use the list of plants and animals that live near water to either assign an animal to each student or let each student choose an animal they would like to learn more about. As you move through the unit, students will apply what they learn to research and explain how their chosen animal uses its adaptations to survive, grow, and reproduce. They will pick a plant in Section 2 of the unit. You'll co-construct the Gotta Have It checklist with your students that tells them what to include in the first part of their picture. You'll then have students complete the Animal Adaptations student journal page to draw an example of an adaptation their animal has. To support student sense-making across the unit, you'll orient students back to the driving question board. You'll ask, what did we learn about how plants and animals are able to survive where they live? And what new questions do we have? By the end of this lesson, students will have used evidence to explain how animal adaptations allow them to survive in different habitats. In Lesson 2, students will investigate how animals get food to survive. For more information about this unit, visit myscipartners.com.